Irashi Amanda, and of course you'll meet them as we go ahead. So the expression unit that is hosting this webinar today, the Expression Information and Digital Rights Unit, or the Digital Rights Unit as we call it for short. It's a unit of the Center for Human Rights that basically promotes human rights in the access to information age through working with various stakeholders, as we are doing today. Of course, using the African Charter and the AU Model Law as our base, and also working with the Special Rapporteur for Access to Information in Africa. I don't know if we all know, but of course the AU Model Law on Access to Information was adopted in 2013 and was basically meant to ensure that persons or countries around Africa are able to adopt national laws that promote access to information for their citizens, because we know in the digital age, access to information is very important. Today we're having this conversation about Malawi, and maybe we'll also cut across the continent, but of course, Malawi adopted its Access to Information Act in 2016. And of course, partners in Malawi and stakeholders in Malawi, especially the Malawi Human Rights Commission, and also the Ministry for Information and Digitization, of course, have been having these actions or activities to promote the law and access to information within Malawi. So we wanted to have this conversation with stakeholders in the civil society and the government to sort of have an understanding on how the protection of the rights to access to information, or the freedom of access to information, is the current situation where Malawi is moving forward, whether this Access to Information Act has adequately embodied the AU Model Law on access to information, and how it is being implemented. Are people aware of it? Is it effective? Are the institutions in place for effective implementation? So all of those things we are going to be discussing today. So of course, we have individuals. So our presenters basically are from, we have a presenter from the Malawi Human Rights Commission. We also have someone from the Ministry of Information and Digitization. We also have a person from MISA Malawi. And of course, we have a person from Youth and Society, who Youth and Society, of course, as we know, is our partner for this particular webinar. So at this juncture, we are going to be inviting our 4 participants to introduce themselves. I hope they are here already. So we are going to be starting with the representative from the Malawi Human Rights Commission, Mr. Chance. Can you please introduce yourself for us? Thank you very much.
Hello, thanks, Smith. My name is Chance Kalolokesia, and I work for Malawi Human Rights Commission as Deputy Director for Civil and Political Rights, but also a head of the Access to Information Unit. Thank you, and over.
Smith, you are on mute.
I'm sorry. Yes, so I was just saying that we have a representative from the Ministry of Information and Digitization. Can you please introduce yourself for us, please?
Hello, good morning. My name is Arthur Chipenda. I work as Deputy Director in the Ministry of Information, but also I'm the Information Officer for the Ministry of Information and Digitalization in Malawi. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. We also have Misa Malawi. Representative from Misa Malawi.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Mande Pondane. I work as a Principal Public Relations Officer for the Office of the Ombudsman in Malawi. But I also sit in the National Governing Council for Misa Malawi as Vice Chairperson. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And then, of course, finally, we have a representative from the youth and from Youth and Society. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mandida Teu. I'm with Youth and Society, an NGO which promotes and defends human rights and democratic governance in the principal interest of young people, but also the marginalized group. I'm the program coordinator responsible for human rights and civil society strengthening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're all welcome. And I know we are going to be having an engaging conversation with the participants. So a bit of, we might be having a bit of load shedding here in South Africa. So just in case, we hope not, but we'll let you know in case we have that. So of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have Youth and Society who are our partners for this particular webinar. So we are going to be having Mr. Charles from Youth and Society, to give us a bit of a background on the organization and the work they're doing in terms of access to information in Africa. Mr. Charles, are you there?
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
right.
We can. Thank you.
Yes, so I'll not take much of your time. As Mandida has already introduced Youth and Society, we are a governance and human rights watchdog based in Malawi. And our mandate basically is to promote and defend human rights and democratic governance in the best interest of young people. And we have been around since 2012. And in terms of our work around access to information, we are basically supporting the operationalization of Access to Information Act in Malawi, which is basically a new law. As you might be aware that this is a law that was commenced on 30th of September 2020, despite being really passed the parliament around 2016. And we are coming from a decade-long advocacy with a number of stakeholders, including Misa Malawi as our lead advocate in ensuring that we have this law. And now that we have this law, the big question is how do we ensure that it is effectively implemented? Having one law is another thing, but really translating it into benefits for the society is something altogether, and that's what we are dealing with at the moment. We just I completed one project on access to information that is basically focused on the popularizing the law and also building capacity of different stakeholders, including the district councils, the citizens, the media, the human rights defenders, just really investing in translating this law into a usable tool for citizens as well as different stakeholders. And I know there's huge work ahead. Being a new law, we have a lot of citizens who are not aware about this law, and let me not preempt what the speakers will be sharing in this webinar, but really just to highlight that it is a very critical instrument that we need. As we are all aware, it is an enabling, right. Access to information is an enabling right for all other fundamental rights to be realized.
Thank you so much, Charles.
Thank you. In conclusion, thank the Center for Thank you.
Oh, yes, sorry for, yes. Thank you so much, Charles.
So I lost you, that's fine. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We are going to be hearing what the what the Youth and Society is doing in coordination with other stakeholders. Just a bit of a heads up. So because of the very limited time, we are going to be having the participants put in their questions and comments in the chat box, and we'll have a Q&A session after the speakers are done with their presentations. Of course, when we see anything in the chat box that raises a lot of attention, we might bring it to the attention of the speakers. But in the meantime, we should just put all of our conversations and questions in the chat box. At this point, I'm going to be handing over to my colleague and co-host, Idirashe Amanda, who will take on the next session. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Idirashe Amanda Chukwamba, as Smith has introduced me. At this particular juncture, I would like to call upon Mr. Arthur Chipenda, who is with the Ministry of Information and Digitization in Malawi. Mr. Chipenda, I'd like you to take the next 15 minutes to briefly speak to us about the role of the ministry in as far as facilitating open government through access to information. May you kindly take the floor in the next 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Or I should use my headset?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay,
please
fine.
Go ahead.
Okay. The Ministry of Information and Digitalization, when it comes to issues to do with the ministry has been quite involved in the discussions around the access to information law that we have at the moment, beginning with the discussions that began in the 2000s when with Mr. Malawi and other civil society organizations, we got into a discussion that as a country, we needed to have this law in place. Yes, it took quite long for us to get where we are. And around 2010, 2011, that's when we started the process of having an enabling or a supporting government policy, the National Access to Information Policy, which was formulated in 2012, and then Cabinet adopted it in 2013. So this policy paved way for the enactment of the law that we have at the moment, but the process has been quite slow. So between 2013, when the policy was adopted, it was only in 2016 when the Malawi Parliament passed the Access to Information Bill, and later in 2017, around February, when the President assented to the bill to make it a law. Between 2017, when the law was enacted, or when the bill was enacted, what was supposed to be done was to appoint a commencement date for the law so that it comes into effect. And then this also took us some time, whereby on 30th September 2020, that's when government, through the Minister of Information and Digitalization, appointed the commencement date of the law. And by January 2021, the ministry gazetted the subsidiary legislation, like the regulations for the Access to Information Act, which were gazetted in January 2021. So as we sit, or where we sit, I can comfortably say that on the part of government, we have these two critical instruments that are supposed to promote transparency, that are supposed to promote accountability of government, that are supposed to promote or empower the citizens to be able to approach the public institutions and seek the information that is relevant to their day-to-day life, as indicated or as stipulated in the law. As a ministry, we are also supposed to appoint, we're also supposed to ensure that the public institutions or the information holders are supposed to appoint information officers who should be the point of contact when the citizens come to these public institutions to seek any information, any public information. This is an area that we have grappled with, whereby as we see it, the ministry is supposed to have, every financial year, the minister is supposed to publish a list of all information officers in the public institutions. But since the commencement of the law, when in 2020, the minister has not been able to publish these names. But as it is at the moment, we have about 83 institutions, including almost all district councils, maybe less 3 or 4 that have not yet designated or appointed an information officer. We have these 83 names that the minister, or that we're working on to ensure that the minister publishes. This is not the complete list of all public institutions. We have a situation whereby we have agreed that, I think, why don't we, like in this 2023-2024 financial year, we publish part 1, and then maybe in a month or 2, as we're working with the other public institutions to designate or appoint information officers, we also publish the part 2. The other challenge has been the public institutions are only supposed to designate or to appoint already existing employees within an institution to be doing work concerning access to information. The setup at the moment does not provide for employment of a full-time employment or staff member whose work on everyday basis should be ensuring that as a public institution, the institution is working on ensuring that the information in its custody gets to the citizens as smoothly as possible. That's the major challenge that we have. And as government, this was another problem that we faced, whereby, I'll give an example. Say in a ministry of gender, for example, we faced a situation whereby the 2 officers who were designated to be information officers were moved out of the ministry to other ministries. These were the officers which we call the common service, that can move to any other ministry at any time, depending on the requirements of work. So we had to make sure that the institutions where the officers were appointed and then they were moved, they had to reappoint again. So as a government, the discussions we've started having within government is, why don't we have substantive positions in these public institutions whereby an individual is employed as an information officer under the Access to Information law, so that every day when this individual goes to work, he or she knows that the work that I'm supposed to be doing concerns access to information, facilitation of flow of this public information to the citizens. And then we know that we have full-time officers and not to be having this responsibility, this critical responsibility to be handled as an ad hoc situation or ad hoc work. So yeah, as a ministry, that's what I can hint on. The other responsibility that we have as a ministry is to ensure that each financial year, at the end of every financial year, we publish, or the Minister of Information is supposed to, the Minister of Information and Digitalization is supposed to lay before Parliament a report of how public institutions have fared in that particular financial year, in as far as access to information is concerned, in as far as granting access to information is concerned. Unfortunately, where we stand now, we still also haven't done that, but we have started working on that. That although the commencement date was 2020 September, we want to make sure that in this financial year, 2023-2024 financial year, we begin to have everything in place. We have the guidelines for the public institutions on how they should report at the end of a financial year, but also as a ministry, we make sure that we publish the names of information officers that have been designated by the public institutions or the public information holders. I think at the moment I can stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation and for highlighting the role that the government, specifically the Ministry of Information, has played in coming up with the policies and ultimately coming up with the access to information law. Maybe at this point, if I could pose a direct question on maybe the special or specific strategies that the ministry has come up with in order to cater for marginalized groups as far as access to information is concerned.
We have been working with our partners, the Malawi Human Rights Commission. Mr. Malawi has also been involved, but also Oxfam has been running a project to promote access to information. This is quite a new law, and it's like a baby that is trying to crawl, walk, and then run. We keep on learning or bringing up new issues to the table. We haven't specifically developed a strategy that focuses on the marginalized people yet, but the approach has been wholesale, whereby when it comes to awareness, when it comes to empowerment of the citizens, it has been quite a general approach to the general citizenry, but not specifically delving into specific groups at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your response in that regard. Maybe you can briefly tell us that in this age of internet disruptions and digital censorship, are you able to just give us a brief rundown of what maybe the government has done or is doing in as far as access to information in the digital age, especially focusing on prevention of internet disruptions?
Likely for Malawi, we have not come into any situation whereby we have our internet access to internet access by the citizens jammed or blocked in any way. And I can confidently say I don't see this happening in the setup that we have. Malawi might be quite a small country, but when it comes to respect for human rights, but also promoting access to information, I think we are quite open in that area. So as a government, there hasn't been any situation or any day whereby we have blocked access to the internet by the public. But in addition to that, the government is working towards making sure that the cost of connectivity, for example, the cost of smart gadgets, for example, must go down so that as many people as possible have this opportunity to be in the digital space and exercise their right in the digital space. When it comes to digitalization, this is on top of the government agenda. At the moment, government is working on having a strategy on promoting digital economy being adopted by government, but also review of the Communications Act to ensure that it is up to date, and also several other strategies that promote participation of Malawians in the digital space. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that response. Maybe I'd also like to pose a question as far as strategies that you have employed in as far as organizing information so that it's easily accessible to the public, maybe online, still on that issue of keeping in line with the digital age. Are there any strategies that you've put in place to ensure that information is easily accessible to the public?
Sorry, can you come again? Sorry. I was reading the Q&As, so I think I lost you there. Sorry.
Okay, no, it's fine. I was saying maybe if you can briefly outline any strategies that you have taken to ensure that the information is easily accessible to the public, not only paper-based, but maybe even online, so that it's accessible to the public. Any strategies or measures that you have taken so far?
Okay, for the government, through the Department of E-Government, the process of digitizing public records has begun with support from a project by World Bank, whereby all records that are held by government are supposed to be digitized so that they are easily accessible, so that they're easily stored, but also retrieved whenever they are required. So I think what I can point out at the moment is that initiative that as government through the Department of E-Government, we have embarked on that so that we have all the government records digitized, but also to ensure that government is operating effectively online. There has been an improvement when it comes to all these government digital platforms that have been developed. For example, the procurement system at the moment has been developed. The government financing and accounting system has also been improved. Yeah, now what remains is to have all these digital systems for government that are presently operating as silos. They should be networked into a single system whereby when it comes to retrieval of information, when it comes to seeking any information to do with government, becomes easier. In addition to that, we have also just constructed the first government data center, which is now located in Malawi's commercial district in Blantyre. Okay, this to be used as a repository when it comes to not only government information, but also any other information that will be relevant to the development of the country, but also to people's lives. Another data center is also being constructed in Lilongwe with support from World Bank. So we have these two data centers, one as a main repository, and then the other one maybe to be used as a backup. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chipenda, for that very detailed presentation and for all the information that you have shared and all the strides that the ministry has taken in ensuring that access to information is adequately disseminated to the people of Malawi. At this particular juncture, I'd like to call upon Mr. Chance Kalolokeska from the Malawi Human Rights Commission, who's going to take us through the role of the Human Rights Commission in as far as the implementation of the Access to Information Act is concerned. Mr. Kalolokeska, the floor is yours. In 15 minutes, may you kindly take us through your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Good morning. The moderator has introduced me. My name is Chance Kalolokesia, and I work for Malawi Human Rights Commission. Let me start by sharing the role of the Commission according to the Access to Information Act in Malawi. The mandate of the Commission, the overall mandate of the Commission, is to oversee the implementation of the Access to Information Act. However, in that mandate, we have a number of roles or powers that the Commission is invested with. For example, the commission is supposed to raise awareness of right to access information. The commission is supposed to advise the government and other information holders to which the act applies on coordination and management of information. The commission is also supposed to review decisions of information holders. So this would be if the request has been denied, we have to review and make necessary recommendations or determinations on the same. The commission also supposed to recommend the declassification of information exempt from disclosure. So you find that certain information is classified as pertaining to maybe policies, laws in the country, and if there is a very good reason as to that information ought to be disclosed, the commission has that power to recommend declassification. The commission also supposed to make recommendations to government on matters related to the legal framework on access to information and legislation. So if you want to make any changes to this act, because maybe there's some gaps, it's the duty of the commission to bring up such recommendations to relevant authorities, whether it's the parliament, in this case, to make such changes. So these are some of the roles. There could be quite more, but from there, let me go to what we have done so far based on such mandates. Then again, I will also zero in terms of the challenges that were faced as the commission. So far, the commission has started raising awareness through various platforms, especially through media. We have done a bit of raising awareness, but not as much as would want. The commission also has is collaborating with various organizations that are implementing initiatives on access to information. For example, Oxfam, Youth and Society, Center for Human Rights and Rehabilitation, Coast Malawi. Coast Malawi is construction sector transparency initiative in Malawi. So it's something with access to information. We also engage the parliamentary committee. So the commission has engaged the parliamentary committee, which is responsible for media, information, and communication. One is to update them the progress that we've made, but also to lobby for their support in terms of addressing some of the issues that the commission is facing in the implementation. We have trained designated information officers. So far, more than 120 designated information officers from the 3 regions in Malawi have been oriented on Access to Information Act. The commission also has established an Access to Information unit. This is to help in terms of implementation of the act. So within the commission, we have a unit just focusing on access to information. We have produced and submitted an annual report to Parliament as required by the law. So both the Commission and the Minister of Information are required by the law to submit an annual report to the Parliament. We did ours for 2021 and also expect to submit one for this year, for 2022. We have also started monitoring and assessing compliance by information holders. So far we have gone to more than 50 information holders, both public, private, as well as NGOs, to assess compliance of the Access to Information Act. We have developed and published an information guide, which is a very important document and is required by the Access to Information Act, which will help information holders in terms of knowing their duties, as well as the rights holders to know their rights in terms of enjoying the access to information, the right to access information. So these are some of the things that the commission has established, but also I should also point out that the commission has worked closely with the Ministry of Information on various levels in terms of making sure that this act becomes operational. For example, when the ministry came up with the regulations, the commission worked closely and advocated for the same. We have also engaged the Ministry of Information on various occasions to make sure that the list of information officers is published as required by the law. So like you have heard from Arthur, there is still a challenge that haven't published yet. Then let me go to some of the challenges that the Commission has faced so far. We have observed that there is low demand for access to information, and this one can be attributed to inadequate awareness. So when we go for assessment in terms of compliance, we find that the numbers are very low. An institution, for example, has maybe received only 2 requests for the whole year. And the main problem is people are not aware of the law. Then secondly, the culture of secrecy is still prevalent among us, and many information holders are not willing to disclose the information proactively, or even to really take on the request as well, because they are still living in the past. And this is aided by some conflicting laws. So we've got some laws in the country, existing laws, which are in conflict with the Access to Information Act. For example, the Official Secrecy Act, where one has taken an oath that whatever is discussed cannot reveal, or whatever document cannot pass on. So that, when it comes to access information, becomes a bone of contention. It's a conflict there. There is Mines and Minerals Act, is also one such law which is quite prohibitive, because no one can access information about a company that has been given a license until 2 years after the expiry of the contract, so or the license, that is. So that is another challenge, and there's so many other laws. These are just examples. Another challenge is failure by the Ministry of Information to publish a list of information officers as required by the law. This is a big problem, because information officers are very key in terms of implementing this law. So if the ministry cannot publish that list, it means people may not be aware of who is the information officer for which information holder. And even for us, the Human Rights Commission, if we want to engage information officers, it's also a challenge unless we engage each institution individually. Then the issue of law funding to the commission. So far, since the law became operational, the commission came up with a roadmap to chart how this law can really become effective. And we have seen that not much of what we put on a roadmap has been supported, because the funding has been low, has been very low. By the way, the commission depends, we get our funding from the government. The government is the primary funder for the commission. Donors are just complementing whatever the government is doing. So likewise, even access to information supposed to be funded by the government. And so far, we don't have a project supported by the donor, but you need to depend on a government funding. But the funding has been so low. Another challenge is non-compliance to the law by information holders, and this can be attributed to lack of administrative penalties. So non-compliance here, in the sense that not everything that an information holder is not complying can be taken to court. Some of the things simply need to have administrative sanctions. So, for example, if an information holder does not have an information officer, there is no penalty there that one can be taken to court and can pay a penalty or a fee. But rather, this is administrative. There must be penalties. Otherwise, as it is right now, just to make recommendations, it is not really effective. So, in short, these are some of the challenges that were faced. And unfortunately, if we talk about compliance, even my brother here, Arthur, from the Ministry of Information, and he's the information officer, it could be one of those institutions which are not complying to some of the provisions of the law. So actually, we can see that it's really a challenge, maybe because of just started, but it's now more than 2 years. We need to move on and make headways. Then let me go quickly to wind up with maybe strategies that we have put in place to address some of these issues that I've raised, some of the challenges. So we are still saying in terms of raising awareness, we need to do a lot in terms of raising awareness through information, education, and communication materials, using mass communication and other means. We also want to continue assessing compliance, because that's the one which helps people to, information holders to be alert in terms of following following the act or the law. We also continue to engage Parliament to lobby for support in various means. For example, the Parliament can summon information holders that are not complying with the act, or the Parliament can lobby for more funding towards the ATI unit. We have also made sure that the ATI unit is one of the flagship projects under the public sector reforms. So if you look at Malawi Human Rights Commission, our flagship projects, ATI unit is one of them. So it's a priority within the commission, so that we should make sure that we put much effort on access to information. We also make regular press statements on access to information to update the public, but also to engage the duty bearers to obey or to follow what the law says, whether the government and the oral information holders. Maybe I should stop there, and I know there could be some questions and other things. I'll be able to come back, and over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very insightful and comprehensive discussion on the role of the commission. Maybe while on that, if you can tell us what measures the commission has taken to ensure that the public had access to credible information during the COVID-19 pandemic, as Malawi was responding to the pandemic. Maybe if you can briefly touch on that aspect.
All right, thank you. I don't think, I may not really just speak for the pandemic as such, but the number of issues that have happened in the country, a number of crises that really have called for people to access important information. So the COVID is one of them. We also had issues of food crisis in between. We have had issues of cyclone in between, all those issues. And the commission has been proactive in coming up, issuing a statement advising government to disclose important information to the public, to proactively disclose information. For example, on the issues of food crisis, we issued a statement on the same. Even during the time of COVID, we issued a statement which tackled a number of issues, advising the government as a primary duty bearer to be able to disclose relevant information to the public, so the public should not be kept in the dark in terms of what to do, or how much resources have come to address the COVID-19 or other crises, and how those resources have been utilized. So we have always issued a statement to address such issues. That's what the commission has done so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution to the Spotlight Initiative and for taking your time to speak with us today. At this particular juncture, I would like to call upon Ms. Mandy Pondani from the Media Institute in Southern Africa in Malawi to give us a presentation on the link between freedom of expression and access to information. Over to you, Ms. Pondani. May you please do your presentation in the next 15 minutes.
Well, thank you so much. I think I will not be belaboring the point, because most of the things that I have to say have already been said by the previous speakers. But I think what has to be noted is that as Malawians, in Malawi, we've had a provision for freedom of expression as well as access to information. But for a long time, we had no enabling law. So that's why we started to think and pondering over having this enabling law. And Mr. Malawi stepped in those years. That was around 2013, 2014. In 2003, rather, we stepped in and started advocating for this law. Because, you know, as journalists, we work for the public. We have an obligation and a mandate. We owe the public accurate and credible information, but we may not be able to deliver if those that are holding the information are not forthcoming with that information. That's why Mr. Malawi took it upon itself and started advocating for this law. But also, if you look at in terms of from the side of the citizens, if the citizens are to express themselves from a point of, from an informed point of view, then there has to be a solid ground in terms of information accessibility for them to hold their leaders accountable and stuff like that. And this is why we needed this law as soon as those years when we started advocating for it. Needless to say that in as much as we can celebrate the strides that have been made, there is still a long way to go. As Arthur put it, that government, there seems to be political will, yes. But what we have seen in the recent years, since it was even operationalized in 2020, there is selective application of this law, selective application, selective use of the law. The offices, there is this careful selection of what they want to put out and what they want to put out. The critical information that would help the citizens to hold their leaders accountable. For instance, maybe on matters of funding, matters of procurement and stuff like that. That information is hardly made available to the masses. So you see that in as much as we have the law in place, but it is not still meeting its intended purpose that we really were looking forward to when we were advocating for it. So the freedom of expression that the citizens are meant to enjoy, it's not being enjoyed fully. So there is still a lot that has to be done. If I have to be honest, there is still a lot that has to be done from our leaders as well as the responsible officers led by the Ministry of Information, which is represented here by Arthur. I think there is more that we can do. Briefly, Elisha, that's what I can say for now.
Oh, thank you very much for that. It's quite interesting that you're bringing up information relating to a lack of proactive disclosure by some institutions that custodians of information, so to speak, in Malawi. Maybe in that same vein, maybe if you can tell us briefly of MISA's role in ensuring that there is proactive disclosure as far as information is concerned, or what strides have been taken on behalf of citizens, if any.
Well, as Mr. Malawi, I think we have been, as I put it, we have been active in all the stages of trying to come up with this law and to where we are now. And what we have done is to raise awareness. We have raised awareness among our members. Mr. Malawi boasts of a membership of over 2,000 journalists. We have engaged police officers. We have engaged public relations officers from public institutions, government ministries, departments, and agencies. But we can only do so much, knowing that we are not even subvented by the government. We don't get any funding from government. So the resources that we mobilize are very limited. If anything, what we would like to see is government actively and committedly funding the Malawi Human Rights Commission, which government in itself appointed to be an implementation entity for the ATI. And I think that is what we have also been lobbying for quite some time. But on our own as an institution, as MISA Malawi, we have tried and we continue to draw programs along those lines to ensure that at least our membership and some of the opinion leaders that we engage with are informed about this law. We have had awareness campaigns, we have had public rallies where we talk to people on the ATI, how they can use the ATI and stuff like that. Because I think one thing that people maybe might not appreciate fully is that the involvement of MISA, people think that it's a law, the ATI then exists to benefit journalists the more. But this law is for everyone. And we have gone out of the way to even sensitize the laymen out there. But as I've already said, that resources do not permit us to go as far as we'd like to. So most of the onus really rests with the government, because if it put this law into operation, then it doesn't make sense for it not to fund an entity that it chose to spearhead implementation of this very same law that they have put into operation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe if I can solicit your comments on what you think the role of social media is in as far as access to information is concerned.
You see, as I already said, that we appreciate the role that social media is playing in terms of offering information that the masses or the citizenry would want from their public offices. But as I put it, there is selective issuance of information, because the critical information that people may want to know, let's say from the public procurement institution, may not be put on social media. What we see are PR related kind of content. So yeah, if we are to use the ATI, it is more than what social media is offering right now. I'm sorry to say that in as much as public institutions have utilized the social media space to raise awareness or whatever, to put themselves out there for people to see what they're doing, but the critical information that people would want is not made available to them. Hence the need for these information officers and the technicalities that come with the use of the ATI. And that can only be possible if people are made aware that this law exists and there are these stages, or maybe there are these procedures that have to be followed if you want to access information using the ATI. Mind you that using this law is not an ABC thing. It's not a thing that you just wake up and say, oh, I've come, I want this and that, I'm using the ATI. There are procedures that have to be followed. So if people are to appreciate and to comprehend all those steps and procedures, that we need to invest in time and resources to raise awareness around this new law. Otherwise, social media, yes, but not quite in terms of the ATI.
Thank you very much for that. Maybe just as you maybe conclude, maybe if you can briefly give us your thoughts on what you think, does the media have a role, if any, as far as linking freedom of expression and access to information is concerned?
Well, the media has a role for sure, but my only worry is that we have the information gaps are also existing within the media fraternity. That should be, I think, should be a worry for everyone. So in as much as you'd want the media to champion freedom of expression and also the use of the this new law that we have, but the gaps that are existing in the media should be worrying, should be cause for worry for everyone. As I said that as MISA Malawi, we as a mother body for the media fraternity in Malawi have not been able even to reach all our members, raising awareness and teaching them on how to use this law. So you can see that there still exists an impediment that will need concerted efforts from various stakeholders before we start holding the media accountable for failing to utilize the law, and also for failing to help the public to utilize the freedom of expression that is provided for in the Constitution of the Republic of Malawi.
Thank you very much for your response, and thank you very much for giving us a CSO's perspective as far as access to information in Malawi has been obtaining. At this particular juncture, I'd like to call upon Miss Mandida Teu, who's with the Youth and Society Organization, who's going to give her presentation on including critical voices in the implementation of access to information in Malawi. Ms. Mandida, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Ms. Teo, are you there?
Who's the
You can proceed with your presentation if you're ready. The presentation is supposed to be on including critical voices in the implementation of the Access to Information Act. Maybe in the meantime, while we're waiting for her to set up, maybe if we can go briefly to Mr. Chipenda. I see there are some questions in the Q&A platform. Maybe if you can answer one question for us in the meantime while we wait for her.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello.
Please proceed.
Okay, sorry, I've moved into another meeting, so I'll not be able to use the video, but I can pick some of the questions. Some of the questions I've already responded directly to the two individuals, but I can see a question that access to the internet has not been disrupted in Malawi, but sections 24 of the Electronic Transactions and Cybersecurity Act has problematic provisions which would allow the government to shut down the internet. Can the ministry comment on this? What I can say to this question is that the government has the responsibility to ensure that the citizens are protected whenever there are any other issues that endanger them. Section 24 of the Electronic Transactions and Cybersecurity Act, yes, much as it is providing for intervention of government to intervene electronically for law and order, which I think is what the one who put the question is worried about, that the government is likely to abuse this provision, but the section also provides for several other interventions which come into government's responsibility to protect the citizens. For example, ensuring that the children are protected online or in the cyberspace, and any other provisions to secure or to protect the citizens. I can assure the meeting, but also whosoever has joined us, that government will not get to a point whereby the intervention in the electronic space for law and order is used to abuse the rights of the people. I know that's where the fear is, but this provision is specifically to protect the citizens from these dangers that they face in the cyberspace. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that response. Maybe now we can go back to Miss Mandida, see if she's available. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Your presentation is supposed to be on the critical voices in the implementation of the Access to Information Act in Malawi. So maybe to start us off, you can maybe explore the role of civil society in as far as vibrant access to information regimes are concerned as a starting point.
Thank you so much, and I might apologize that my network is tripping and I wouldn't be able to turn into the video, but I would be able to talk through the audio. So I hope that is granted.
That is okay, you can proceed.
Thank you so much. First of all, the law of Malawi, civil society and facilitating citizens access to information. Firstly, I would say the right to information is an essential component when it comes to a democratic society, which means it enables citizens to hold their elected representatives accountable for their decisions. So it is important to recognize the right to information, which is an essential component to a democratic society. So as Malawi civil society, like any other civil society in another country, we are there to make citizens aware of the Access to Information Act, because that is the only way we can empower citizens to request information and also to hold their duty bearers accountable in terms of them being proactively displaying the information that citizens need. But also as civil society, we are there also to push for some progressive laws that do not conflict with the Access to Information Act. I think Chance had touched on this earlier on to say, yes, we have the Access to Information Act, but there are some laws that are clashing with the Access to Information Act. For example, the Oath of Secrecy, but also the Official Secrets Act. The Access to Information Act empowers people to ask for information and to be given information that they need, but there are some laws that protect the public officials in terms of giving out the information. So as civil society, we need to push for progressive laws that do not clash with the access to information. But also, I think one thing that as civil society we can do is to make sure that government proactively disclose information for easy accessibility. It shouldn't take citizens to ask for information, but rather government willingly to produce information that can benefit its citizens. So as civil society, we have to make sure that we're pushing for that so that government should proactively disclose information. But also the whole Access to Information Act, civil society needs to monitor its implementation and give feedback and also give feedback to the government on how we are faring, because we cannot just operate on a platform that is vacant. But as civil society, we have to make sure that we are following the implementation of access to information and perhaps produce reports that they can feed into what government is to do when it comes to the implementation of the law. So that's that, Edie.
Okay, thank you very much for that response. Maybe if you could kindly provide a general background of the collaborations existing currently in supporting implementing institutions.
As Youth and Society, we've been implementing a project on rights to information, which one of the things is that we needed to make sure that we get the Access to Information Act to the citizens, but also to the jure bearers. I think I have to point this out to say, when we were just starting the project, we realized that even the jure bearers are not aware of the Access to Information Act. Perhaps our mind were like looking only at citizens in terms of empowering them to know the Access to Information Act, but we later on realized that even the jure bearers in the local councils, they do not understand the Access to Information Act. So this has been a platform for us as Youth and Society and other partners to make sure that citizens are aware of the Access to Information Act, but also jure bearers are aware, because by the end of the day, jure bearers are also supposed to be capacitated for them to give out the information. Equally, that citizens are supposed to be capacitated for them to be able to request for information and also to point out any other thing that would limit in terms of them accessing the information. I must also state that from the start of our project, we were in 10 district councils, and most council members felt threatened by the project as they thought that YAS and its partners were after empowering citizens to be critical of government. So already there's a gap, because if government feels threatened with the coming in of a project which is there and mandated to empower citizens to ask for information, then there's a gap, because now the jure bearers now are afraid of the citizens being empowered. But I'm glad to say that through our implementation processes, the local councils were able now to understand what was the intention of the project itself. But also we have, we need, as Youth and Society, we acknowledge that the project success relied so much on the collaboration and mobilization of key stakeholders. We managed to mobilize MISA, Malawi Human Rights Commission, Ministry of Information, Media Council, and even the specific parliamentary committees in terms of our initiatives that we implemented at that level. But also one thing that I've learned throughout the implementation of our 2-year project is that there is more to be done when it comes to awareness of the Act itself. Yes, we're talking about the Act that empowers citizens to ask for information and also jure bearers to proactively give information and give information upon being requested. But I think there's more to be done in terms of awareness of the Act itself, because more people are not aware of this Access to Information Act. And one thing also that I've learned is that we need to utilize the media, whether it's local and national level media platforms. We need to utilize those platforms, because by the end of the day, we would not be physically in all the 28 districts, but the media would help us in terms of disseminating the information on the Access to Information Act. But also, this point was also raised by Chancellor from Malawi Human Rights Commission, is that perhaps public institutions are not proactively disclosing the information, because the law is clearly indicating to say it's not upon request that the government or the public institutions can give information, but them willingly to give out information. So there's that gap that most of the public institutions are not proactively giving out information. Remember that there are a grouping of people that wouldn't go in an office to ask for information. But if the government is able to proactively disclose that particular information, those people would benefit from that. And also, one thing we learned also is that Malawi Human Rights Commission is not adequately funded. Hence, us coming into the initiative in terms of making awareness of the ATI Act, it was more of also boosting the mandate of Malawi Human Rights Commission when it comes to access information, minding that the they are a holder of the Access to Information Act. Lastly, I think few citizens are requesting for information because it dates back to our culture of secrecy. So yes, we have the Access to Information Act, but then we need to get back to history whereby people were not supposed to question those in power. So yes, the Access to Information Act, but people are not willing to ask for a particular information because in courts, they feel like there is still that culture of secrecy that would limit people from accessing information, which means we need to do more in terms of now making it aware, making it possible for people to be aware of them asking for a particular information, because we are in an era that people still dates back to the history to say there's that culture of secrecy. Sure.
Thank you very much for that. Maybe if you can briefly give your thoughts on what the basis of the inclusion of the youth, persons with disabilities, and women in access of information initiatives. If you can maybe just briefly give us what you think is the basis for the inclusion of those marginalized groups, so to speak.
Thank you so much. The right to access to information, as any other right, is a right for all. So that's when inclusivity comes in. So whether they're youth, women, persons with disability, they must be included in terms of access to information. However, the realization of this right for youth, persons with disability, and also women still remains a challenge in terms of implementation of access to information in Malawi. This is so because of the, let's say, the youth. There's a culture that a young person wouldn't ask for information from an adult, but also just the attitude that people have to say, if young people are asking for information, they want to use that particular information for the benefit of the nation and all that. Also, it also dates back to the persons with disability. We are talking of Access to Information Act being digital. But then we should also consider the technological barriers that persons with disability meet, and also the physical barriers that they are there, that even some people with disability cannot make it to an office to ask for that particular information. Even if it can be displayed, they wouldn't have that chance to get that particular information. Also, information and communication barriers that are there when it comes to persons with disability. And just attitudinal barriers, attitude towards persons with disability limits them in terms of accessing information. When it comes to women, it dates back to the confidence that women have. How many women in rural areas would confidently go to a district council and ask for a particular information? And also the capacity. We're talking of many people residing in rural areas. Do they have capacity to ask for a particular information that they want? Even the culture, when it comes to women, they are considered not people that are supposed to ask the why and the hows, because people would say, you are a woman and you're not supposed to do that. But also, finally, the consciousness that is there. So it's limiting people, youth, persons with disability, and women from accessing information. So moving forward, as a country, we need to invest to say we should be inclusive of all people, including youth, women, and persons with disability. Because when it comes to Access to Information Act, it shouldn't leave anyone behind. Every person should have that mandate to ask for information and to access that relevant information. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that response. And I'd like to thank you very much for mentioning key issues in as far as proactive disclosure is concerned, and your efforts in reaching out to local authorities to teach them or conscientize them on what is required of them as duty bearers. especially because they are key in ensuring that service delivery is adequately delivered to the people of Malawi. At this particular juncture, I would like to call upon Crispin to take us through the next segment, which is the question and answer segment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much to our panelists for answering the questions, for presenting the perspectives on access to information in Malawi. Now, we will shortly now answer the questions as we come to the conclusion. And one of the things that the participants have done is send questions to the chat box, and we've been able to see them, and some questions have been answered live. But perhaps now to go to Chance and start with Chance from the Human Rights Commission to probably look at the most asked questions relate to enforcement of this law, the practical enforcement of this law. So perhaps Chance, to start with, you could particularly address the question on overall information access, especially the reporting by the information officers. How many information officers do we need across the public sector, and out of that number, how many do we have now? Perhaps Chance can start us off as we continue to populate the questions. The participants can also raise their hands. We will allow live questions, and we'll be able to now address the questions in the manner that which they've been asked. Chance?
All right, thank you so much. Unfortunately, that question was supposed to be directed at the Minister of Information, because according to the role that the ministry has given to it by the Act, is that they should be able to receive the names of designated or appointed information officers. So it's the ministry that can follow up with the public institutions and other relevant information holders to give them the names of information officers. It's not the commission. So we may not know how many information holders, most especially public sectors that are supposed to submit names of information officers. The ministry should have that list. And earlier on, I think you heard from Arthur, mentioned already that they are compiling a list. And so far, they have got about 83 information officers, the names of 83 information officers, and the lists are yet to be submitted to them. That's what he has been saying. So I may not exactly say to that, but I can say as to what the law says. So the law says that an information holder can designate or appoint one or more information officers. So an institution, whether it's public or private or NGO, can have more than one information officer, who, depending on their need, because some institutions are so big. For example, like the Malawi Police Service, you may not have one information officer because it's so big, it's all over the country, and other institutions like that. So that's what the law says, but I cannot exactly disclose as to how many are there right now. There was also a question which I can also respond to say, is the Act in local languages? No, at the present, the Act is not in local languages, it's in English. We have not yet translated, neither have we put in a Braille format for people with a visual impairment to be able to access it. But we have a local translation for the access to information regulations. So the regulation is subsidiary law. It's administrative in nature. So it works hand in hand with the Act itself. So much of the information which is found in the which is contained in the regulations is like an amplification of what is contained in the Act. So that's the one which we have in Chichewa, and the Chichewa version is meant for us to distribute to rural communities and other people who cannot understand English. I think, okay, there was also another question also on section 6, subsection 1. I think that question does not mean, I think that phrase does not mean that we can use the act against other available laws, should those laws have some restrictions on access to information. But rather it says subject to the Constitution and any other written law. So for example, Mines and Minerals Act, or the Official Secrets Act, and many other existing laws that are within that any other written law. So if they've got restrictions, someone can be denied access to information, unless if you take it to court and the court has to interpret that provision to give another meaning altogether. But as it is right now, it is still a restriction. Let me stop there, and if there are other questions, you let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps to go to Mandy. There are questions that have been raised on access to information. Could you please step in to answer on the role that the civil society is playing to ensure that access to information is being actively implemented? If you could please address some of the strategies that the civil society is taking.
I think for the CSOs, it's Mandida's area.
Oh yeah, Mandy, I think that one I can take it up.
Thank you.
In my first presentation, he must have missed, but I was saying civil society organizations have a role to play when it comes to the implementation of access to information law. So more of us making sure that citizens are aware of the Access to Information Act, but also the duty bearers are aware of the Access to Information Act. We would not leave this act in the holder Malawi Human Rights Commission and just government, but we should take responsibility in making sure that we also go with the message to the citizens that we are representing. Remember, civil society organizations and just civil society are there to make sure that people are aware of the relevant information that are supposed to have. So more of us also taking lead in awareness raising of the Access to Information Act. But also as civil society, we should be able to fight for progressive laws that are not in conflict with access to information. I had earlier on alluded to say access to information, yes, but there are some laws that are limiting access to information. As civil society, we need to make sure that we advocate for progressive laws that do not clash or are not in conflict with access to information. But also, as civil society, we have to make sure that in the access to information law, it's clearly to say citizens are supposed to request for information, but also duty bearers are supposed to proactively give out information. How would we make sure that duty bearers are also proactively giving out information? You remember Chansey from Malawi Human Rights Commission had earlier on tackled on this to say perhaps public institutions are not proactively disclosing information. As civil society organizations, we are supposed to make sure that we advocate for public institutions just to proactively disclose information. Remember, I had said there are some populations that are excluded, and for them to ask for the particular information, it would take ages. And when government or public officials are just proactively giving out information, they would also benefit from that. But also the whole monitoring of the Access to Information Act. Civil society organizations are there to monitor how this act is being implemented, and perhaps coming up with a report that has recommendations to the relevant authorities to take this up. Because when it comes to access to information law, we are privileged as Malawians to have the act. And now we need to make sure that we monitor the part of implementation and give feedback to the relevant authorities in terms of them now acting on the gaps that exist. Thank you.
Thank you. perhaps now to directly address a question that has been raised by Stephen Koma. There is the perspective that the Malawi Human Rights Commission is not being properly funded, and perhaps to ask Chance directly, what other strategies is the Commission adopting to address the issue of funding, and what type of lobbying activities is the Commission then undertaking to ensure that there is proper implementation despite the fact that there is the issue of funding?
All right, can I take it up? Okay, fine. I will combine this with the other question that somebody is asking about the independence of the commission, because we depend on government in terms of funding. So let me start with that one about the independence. Yes, the commission is independent according to what the law says, but that independence does not mean the commission will not get money or funding from the government. Technically, the commission is very much independent, but financially is not, because it is dependent on the government and other donors who want to support the initiatives of the commission. So in terms of addressing the issue of the funding challenges, besides the government, the commission is engages various partners. Like I said in my presentation, that we have worked with Oxfam, Youth and Society, and other organizations that have got interest in this area, the access to information. So we work with them, we partner with them, we collaborate, so that at least where we cannot manage one of the funding, we have the technical expertise, we have the legal mandate, we work with them to implement the Access to Information Act. But also we are trying to mobilize the resources through proposal writing, so that we can get funding from donors to support this initiative. Then there was also a question which also want to attempt, somebody has repeated this question in terms of digitizing information. Somebody asked to say, what's the time frame? Is this the digital information accessible or inclusive in nature? Yes, within the Act, the Access to Information Act promotes the digitization of information. So much of the information can be accessible through digital formats like website, whether social platforms, etc. That's what it is. The drive is towards digitizing information. But we should say that at the present, as a country, Malawi, not so many public institutions have got websites, for example, or not many public institutions have got means to put the information they have in electronic formats. So it will still take a bit of time, and the e-government, which is within the ministry where Arthur comes from, has got a role to play in that area to help public institutions more especially in terms of digitizing information. But within the law, there is a recommendation that once you conduct an activity or once the report is out, you make sure you disclose that report within 60 days. So the limit in terms of time frame is there. Within 60 days, a report must be disclosed, whether it is a survey or a financial report or anything. The moment it is out, within 60 days, it must be made public, whether in a digital format or in hard copy. Yes, so I think that's what was asked. So, okay, maybe also just to comment in terms of inclusivity. Yes, we can say at the present, even the act itself is not in Braille. So that again is a challenge, but it's something that we can work around to make sure that we have the act in Braille, that others who are visually impaired can access the act as well. But we have made sure that the legal framework of the act is accessible electronically, but also in hard copy. That much we have made. In terms of how accessible people can the process itself, the process is very simple in terms of accessing information in Malawi, because one can access information by presenting a request orally whether it is so orally or in writing, or you can write an email, or you can fill a form. So in terms of requesting for information, it is very much easy. Everyone can do it, but maybe the challenges are that what we have mentioned earlier on, like issues of maybe of awareness, the culture of secrecy, etc. Thank you, and over.
Thank you. We'd just like to go now to the ministry to try see if Arthur can answer a few of the questions. He's already answered some questions directly. But Arthur, if you could please confirm that you can hear us. If Arthur cannot hear us, then we'll go to Mandy and ask the question on the role of litigation and strategic partnerships in implementation of the Access to Information Act in Malawi. Mandy, are there any cases, are there any initiatives from a litigation perspective and engagement in that front to see that there is implementation of the Act?
Thank you so much. Sorry, I wouldn't be there are people in my office, I wouldn't be using the video for now. Yeah, but what I'd like to say is that so far we haven't gone the litigation routes as yet. As you can hear from the conversation, I think in as much as we might appear to have made so much strides, but a lot of what is happening indicates of preliminary stages of where would be in a place where we're fully maximizing this law. So not so much really in terms of litigation. Needless to say that there will always be need for these partnerships because as you can see, if, for instance, the commission is not being fully funded or is facing challenges in one way or the other, at that point we need CSOs to come in and complement them. I would need MISA to come in and complement them. So it's a complementary kind of thing that is needed if Malawi is to benefit fully from the existence of this very crucial role. I would also just like to mention that I think talk has been the need for substantive positions for information officers in the public offices where Malawians or maybe journalists, as these are MISA's concern really, to be accessing information. But look, if we're having problems in accessing information, even now when we have these, you know, delegated officers, we are having problems. What more if we have these the substantive positions? Then government will be just wasting taxpayers' money on paying people who will not be even doing the job that they are employed to do. So for me, really, it's an issue of, well, let's make do with these delegated officers. Let's utilize them fully and ensure that everyone is playing their rightful role in ensuring that the ATI is put to use so that citizens can benefit. And then we can be thinking of the bigger plans of having substantive officers, having seen that it is working really now that we have delegated officers. Lastly, I want to point out on issues that the media is facing in Malawi. You see, in Malawi, the most accessible and most cheap way, the most convenient and cheap way of accessing information is through radio primarily, and then we have newspapers which are a bit expensive, and then we go to the internet whose penetration is still very low. But mostly people rely on the radio. But of late, we have seen the regulator, the Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority, MACRA, clamping down on radios and TV stations in Malawi. They've been closing stations for their failure to pay license fees and stuff like that. Well, it's a conversation for another day, but it's an issue that has been of concern to Mr. Malawi, because even these license fees are on a higher side. So as we continue to advocate for access to information, this is one of the issues that should not skip our minds. We may need also to address and to tackle if we are really keen on seeing the citizenry in Malawi accessing the information that they should, that would also enable them demand their rights from their leaders. I think that is what I would like to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We would now like to call on Mwandida to make her closing remarks and answer any of the questions that she might have identified in making the closing remarks. And then we'll head to Chance to also make his closing remarks, after which, Arthur, if you can hear us still, you can address some of the questions that have been asked and also make your concluding remarks. And then Mandy, you'll also make your concluding remarks. Please, if Mwandida, you can start us off.
Thank you so much. I've seen the questions in the platform. There is none directed to me, but my closing remarks are that the Minister of Information should prioritize publishing the names of information officers, because minus information officers, people would willingly deny information to citizens because they do not have information officers in place. So this is a priority, and we need to prioritize that to make sure that the implementation of the ATI Act is great at that point. But also to Malawi Human Rights Commission, knowing that you are limited in terms of funding, I would encourage Malawi Human Rights Commission to continue collaborating with civil society organizations in terms of coming up with the concepts that can speak to access to information, because by the end of the day, we need to see the implementation part of the Access to Information Act. We wouldn't just rely on government, but we have to find ways of how we make sure that the Access to Information Act is to the people and to the jure bearers also. While we are advocating for implementation of the Access to Information Act, I would urge that government, civil society, let's look on the perspective of inclusivity. We shouldn't be talking of Access to Information Act when we are excluding a population of some people. So while we're advocating for the implementation of Access to Information law, let's make sure that we are inclusive of anyone, including persons with disability, young people, but women. Because by the end of the day, we need to make sure that everyone is able to access information and they are able to request a particular information that would benefit them. So that's all for me.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Chance.
All right, thank you so much. On behalf of the Commission, I would like to thank you for this platform that we can share the progress of Access to Information Act. And I know that we have been able to engage various people through this. And it is our wish that this law becomes a reality, this right to access information. Malawians are able to enjoy it, and should make an appeal, most especially to civil society in Malawi, that they have got a role to play, a role in two ways. One, to make sure that they are also there are good examples in terms of following the law, because the law also applies on NGOs. They're supposed to oblige, so they must be exemplary. It's not just about the government, but about all information holders. Secondly, civil society can lead in terms of making sure that pertinent information for the nation is disclosed at various levels. In Malawi, people actually like to complain, just complain and never take action. So as activists, human rights activists, we can take a role of acting on behalf of the people by seeking or requesting for that pertinent information. If it is rejected, you know where to go. You come to Human Rights Commission, you go to court. So let me appeal to civil society to take their leading role in terms of making sure that the information which is pertinent for the public is disclosed by whichever information holder. Let me stop there, but Stimo, I thank you so much for this opportunity. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Chance. If we can please now have Arthur.
Thank you so much. I think maybe before I conclude, let me just make a correction that the number of information officers that have been designated or appointed as of now should be around 100. But the number of institutions that have designated or appointed information officers is 83. And we have engaged another 58 public institutions to replace or designate information officers. So, but these are only from the government side or government institutions. But the law provides for public institutions that are also private. So we haven't yet gotten into that aspect yet. We wanted to have to deal with the government decisions first. In conclusion, let me thank you all for granting us this opportunity that we review how Malawi is doing as far as implementation of the Access to Information Act is concerned. From the end of government, we feel as government, it's like a scenario whereby a road has been constructed and it is now the responsibility of the users to make sure that this road is used, this road is usable. So we really need to encourage all the citizens to put this law into test. Let us test how this law is being implemented. Let us approach public institutions as much as possible to demand information from the government or from the public institutions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arthur. Over to you, Mandy.
Well, thank you so much. I would like to thank the Youth and Society and also the Human Rights Institute for inviting Mr. Malawi to be part of this very important conversation. What I'd like to say in closing is that we cannot talk of a vibrant democratic dispensation when access to information by citizens is being crippled or is being impeded. So it's something that government should put a serious thought to, as well as the various stakeholders should put a serious thought to ensure that as the implementation of the ATI should be enhanced and encouraged. And also there has to be proactive disclosure of information as we have put it. As Mr. Malawi, when we look back on the journey that we have treaded in terms of this law, we are proud of how far we have come. And we hope that wherever we are going, we're destined for something good and beneficial for the country and the citizenry, and also the media in particular. So just to ensure that the freedom of expression and press freedom is enjoyed fully as it should, as provided for in the laws of our country, Malawi. So I thank you for engaging us and looking forward to more engagements and conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to all our panelists. And indeed, the laws in Africa, such as the model law on access to information and other normative guidance developed by the African Commission, assist Malawi in the implementation of the Access to Information Act. And now, as we commemorate the 10 years of the access to information, of the model law on access to information in Africa, let all the stakeholders then come on board to actively ensure that the principles that are contained in the model law are implemented in a way that assists countries to comply with these obligations under the access to information laws nationally. Now, I would like to request our panelists to also switch on their videos as we wrap up, and invite our program manager to also say a word as we conclude. And you're welcome, Ms. Dube.
Thank you so much, Chris, and Idirai. Idirashe and Smith for moderating this. So we'd like also to just, who was part of the webinar, our participants, like those that are in South Africa today, it's a public holiday, but you managed to attend, and to our speakers, really thank you so much to Mandy from MISA, Mwandida from Youth and Society, Chance from the Human Rights Commission of Malawi, and Arthur from the Ministry of Information and Digitization. Really, your expertise and your time is very much appreciated, and we value this partnership a lot. So an ongoing advocacy work that the Center for Human Rights is doing, and it's stemming from the 10 years of the model law on access to information that the African Commission adopted in 2013 to provide guidance to states on access to information legislation in Africa. And for more guidance, the Commission also adopted the 2019 Declaration of Principles on Freedom of Expression and access to information in Africa, that you can also refer to and use it as an advocacy tool. And we also like to extend our deep appreciation to Youth and Society Malawi for partnering with us in this initiative. So as the Center for Human Rights, we are an academic institution that offers human rights education in Africa. And just to say that the moderators for this session are part of the master's class, which is the Human Rights and Democratization in Africa program. So this is part of the education that we are providing to them. Charles is from Kenya also, so it's part of their advocacy work that they are doing as part of their education. And the anticipation is that based on the conversation that we had, it's on a number of issues, and this work in Malawi on access to information. There are some of the issues that have been raised here that they can also take up, and the Human Rights Commission as well. There are some of the issues that you can already reflect on beyond this webinar, and the ministry as well. And I'm sure that the questions managed to guide you data is concerned. And for the civil society organizations as well that are in attendance, maybe you can now see an opportunity for you to complement the work that is being done by Malawi and by MISA Malawi, and also the work that is being done by the Youth and Society organization. There is space, whether you're a human rights, a women's rights organization, disability rights organization, politically, an organization based on elections and other thematic area. Information is a cross-cutting right. You can always mainstream access to information from where you sit. So thank you very much for partnering with the Center for Human Rights and also attending this webinar and contributing in the different forms that you managed to contribute. And so thank you so much. We have been asked to for the picture. We just want to take a screenshot of the speakers. I don't know, Charles, if you are able to turn on your video as well. And our communications team will guide us on whether that picture has been taken.
Thank you, colleagues. We have a screenshot.
Okay, so my smile, I wasn't sure whether I should stop or continue. So thank you so much. I'll hand over to Idirai to close the manager of the Expression, Information and Digital Rights Unit. I really appreciate your time, and we want to also continue partnering with you, but this is just a start, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that, Ms. Seniwe Dube. At this particular juncture, we have come to the end of our webinar. Thank you very much to everyone who's been involved. Thank you so much to the representative from the ministry, the civil society organizations, MISA, YAS, and most importantly, last but not least, the Human Rights Commission. So thank you very much for gracing the Spotlight Initiative as we're commemorating 10 years of the model law on access to information. And that will be all. Well, and thank you very much for the participants from various countries who have graced this webinar for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Simpiwe. Thank you, Vicky, for assisting us.
No worries, Slengi. I'm about to end it. I just wanted to make sure that we have a full recording of people saying bye and stuff like that. So can we end it?
Yes. Yes, I think we can now. Thank you so much. It's a holiday, but you were able to be here. Thank you so much.
No worries, Slengi. Take care of yourself, Mama.